Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is What's Trending. And starring in the show with me each and every week is my friend and a big part of our platform here. She is the woman who says yes. Kathy, are you interested in doing this? Yes, I am. Kathy, do you have any great ideas? Yes, I do. She is just a dynamo. I love her energy, and she is shaking things up here and bringing us fabulous guests. Let's welcome her to the program. Kathy Fulton, hello.
Hello, and good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to see you today. We're back with the pink flowers, and we've got a great guest that you brought to the program. So thank you so much. Let's get started. For people who are joining us for the first time and they're saying, who is this beautiful woman? What is her background and what is she doing here on this channel? In addition to being a co-host and also a co-host of another show that's starting in June, you are also an expert presenter on our Talking Heads platform. You recently got certified as an elevated listener on our listening team. You know how important that is to me. People learn how to listen. And you are also a panelist on A Woman's Prerogative. Have I missed anything?
I don't think so. I think you got it all.
But you have a whole life outside of this channel. So tell us more about that.
Well, so I have had my own interior design firm for 22 years. And what we do, the bottom line is we help create beautiful spaces for people to live in. And I just always, I can't encourage my clients enough to let's make this about you. Let's make this a space that resonates with you and that you enjoy being in every day. And so that's pretty much our bottom line mission. And, but funny, this week I've had multiple phone calls from people that are wanting to use a designer. And, it's kind of like they've all gotten into true confessions in terms of, okay, look, we wanted to use a designer, but we were just thinking that it was so expensive. And so we went ahead and we designed the space ourselves. We bought all this stuff and we hate it. And so can you come and help fix the train wreck? And I'm always thinking to myself, look, I don't cut my own hair. I mean, I'm sure today it probably looks like I do, but it's like, if this isn't what you do every day, hire a professional. I mean, because that 4 to 5 figures that they spent on trying to cut corners and trying to do it themselves, they're going to end up spending that plus in order to fix the space and make it something that they love. So anyway, that's what we do. And that's been my week thus far. So, hopefully people will listen to me and just do it once, do it right.
Perfect. I'm adding comedian to your list of accomplishments as well. And that'll come in handy for our new show, which is Aging Gracefully with Humor.
Yeah, absolutely. You do need humor with that topic.
For sure. Kathy, we have a fabulous guest backstage. I'm going to introduce him, but for people who are joining us and they're wondering, how do we even get on the show? And how do I get to know Kathy to get booked in? What can you share with our audience about that?
Well, my mission for What's Trending is, well, in discussing it with you, I wanted it to be really informative. And so when people watch the show, I want them to leave feeling like, hey, I didn't know that. or I had no idea that that person even existed or that that product was even available. And so, but if you have a message that you would like to get out there, just reach out to me. You can email me, you can call me, you can text me. I make myself available. And but what I think you and I both want to do is prop people up and help them move forward and be a success.
Yes, beautifully said. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to introduce our guest. I actually had the opportunity to speak with him for a few minutes backstage, and I'm just in awe of the work that he does. And if you think about it, there are times in our life when little things happen and we get ourselves all twisted and all upset. It escalates. This man is incredible. He is a burn and trauma surgeon. He sees people who are literally fighting for their lives that must be in incredible physical and emotional pain. And he goes day after day to help people and put other people first. And I just think that's incredible. And in addition, he's also an author, and he's had a new book that was released April the 1st. So it's been out relatively 6 weeks. And the book is called The Bones of Amoret. And we're going to be discussing that and also his work as a surgeon and helping other people. Let us welcome Dr. Arthur Herbert to the show. Hello,
Hey,
Doctor. Welcome.
thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it. I got to ask before we get started, how do I get to be a certified listener? That sounds awesome. What are the qualifications and how do I get paid to listen? I love doing that.
Well, I'll tell you more about that. I have another part of what I do is I'm the listening mentor. So I teach people how to listen at an elevated level. So I would love for you to join our team here at USA Global TV by being an elevated listener. That would be fabulous. I'll chat with you afterwards.
Sounds good.
All right. So you are a doctor, in fact, but yet you don't have doctor in front of your name. So if you can share a little bit about that with our audience, that'd be terrific.
Sure. So I'm very open about this fact that I write fiction under the name Arthur Herbert, but it's a pen name for me. My real name is Herb Phelan. Arthur Herbert is just my first and middle names flip-flopped. And when I was first starting down the fiction writing road in 2019, two reasons that I wanted to do it that way. Number one is the fact that some of what I write is a little on the darker side, and I thought that it might be better to go ahead and write that under a pen name. But really, the bigger thing is just the fact that with a lot of what I do in my day job as a surgeon, I actually consider myself to be a surgeon scientist. If you Google Herbert Phelan, Phelan, you're going to see I've got well over 100 peer-reviewed manuscripts. And so writing has always been a big part of my job. I was an English major in undergrad. I've always enjoyed writing. But, expositional writing, scientific writing is very, very different. And particularly when you're publishing peer-reviewed papers in the peer-reviewed literature. And yeah, you don't want to be known as the guy who writes fiction when it comes to writing scientific papers. So having the pen name for my fiction and my real name going on my science just seemed like a good idea to go ahead and keep a very clean line between the two worlds so that there's never any confusion. If somebody who knows me as a scientist sees my fiction or vice versa, as to which is which. So yeah, that's why, again, I'm very open about the fact that, Arthur Herbert is a pen name, but I'm working on that brand right now. And so that's why I'm introducing myself as that today.
Thank you for sharing that. We always hear about the two sides of the brain, and you really are using both sides of your brain in incredible ways. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, even in undergrad, I was a double major, biology and English. And so all my English major friends used to make fun of my biology friends and vice versa too. So yeah, having a foot in both worlds, there's not many people who do that, who have that on their CV, biology and English.
For sure. Amazing. Kathy?
So was it always when you were going to med school and through your residency, did you always have the goal to be a trauma surgeon or a burn and trauma surgeon?
So in the early days of medical school, well, I should back up and say, I took a very, very circuitous route to get here. After college, I was a social worker, then I was a bartender, then I was a lab technician. I worked in the oil field for a while. So yeah, it's funny when you look at my CV, the biology English thing isn't the only way that it's not the average surgical CV. But once I went to med school, I had really an enchantment with emergency medicine at the time. And it wasn't until I started doing it. I always kind of liked the excitement of the emergency room, but at that kind of very young stage of being a clinical person, it really, I didn't know that much about it. And that when you're young, they let you kind of hopscotch from exciting thing to exciting thing. Oh, I've got a CHF, congestive heart failure exacerbation. Oh, I've got a pancreatitis patient. So you kind of cherry pick charts and you go to the exciting stuff. Well, once I always enjoyed the trauma and the burn surgery side, but if you're coming at it from the standpoint of being in the emergency room only, once it rolls out the doors of the emergency room to the operating room, you never see that patient again. And I found that what I really liked was being in the operating room with those patients. And so as a result, I mean, as late in the trail as you can change your mind, I changed my mind. And early in my fourth year of medical school, I had, how they talk about alcoholics having a moment of clarity. But it was almost like that, where in 15 minutes, I went from I want to be an emergency medicine doctor to I'm not sure I can finish this month of emergency medicine that I'm on right now. And the analogy I say is like I was pushing against a slingshot until finally I just came to grips with that. And once I let go, I've just never looked back. So yeah, I came to trauma surgery and burn surgery late, but I've just absolutely enjoyed it. It's been a calling.
Well, we all have our own journey, right? I mean, you seems like you. So you made it.
Yeah. That's if you would have told me to predict how I would wind up, on May 26, 2022, talking to you two wonderful ladies, I never would have guessed this even just 5 years ago that the fiction writing would be in the cards for me. So I just quit trying to predict. I just relax and take where the river of time takes you. That's the best way to treat it.
Yeah, I always say I just hang on for the ride. I'm a planner. I am
Absolutely.
a self-professed overthinker, but at the end of the day, I really do just hang on for the ride because,
it's like John Lennon said. Yeah, John Lennon said, life is what happens while you're making plans. So
exactly.
I've absolutely become a believer in that.
And that's how we all got here. Who knew that any of us would be here? So,
Yep.
so Doctor, question I have for you is, what would you like people to take away from reading your book?
So it's actually funny. I've got 2 books out. The first one really was just true escapism for the average reader who picks it up, and there's a lot of autobiographical stuff in there. I went through a fairly significant burnout phase about 10 years ago. Recovered from it. I was very fortunate that I made it through. One of the things that our field has come to recognize over the course of the last couple of years is that burnout is a real phenomenon, career-threatening phenomenon for a lot of folks. And writing that book really kind of helped me process through that, even though I wasn't in the acute phase like I had been a few years back. But the main character is a burned out surgeon. So, but it's really more about just pure escapism. Whereas the second book, The Bones of Amoret, the one that's out now, is I don't do politics in my personal life. I don't do politics in my books or anything, but it's a very realistic picture of life down on the Texas-Mexico border. Back in the book is set in 1982, when the idea of the porous border was even more pronounced than it is now. I mean, you could literally show a driver's license back then and go into Mexico for the day and those kinds of things. So, and come back. Now, obviously, it's gotten to be much more regimented, but I love that part of the state of Texas because of the way the two cultures coexist. The food, the music, the people, it really is 2 cultures just trying to carve a living out of the desert landscape. And so I'm not saying read it for any kind of politics or anything like that, but it is, as opposed to just the pure escapism of the first book. I think that the second book really does have, it's not a call to rise above the nonsense of the moment with the screaming heads on television or anything like that. But there's a reminder all through the book that, hey, at the end of the day, we are all just people trying to make a life for ourselves. And so if there is anything that, I don't pretend to be, with these people who holds a mirror up to society or anything like that. But there is, I think, a message there about, don't get down by the latest shouting match on television over this stuff. That down on the border, it is really just people on both sides of the river trying to carve out a life for themselves.
Thank you for sharing that. And people can purchase your book on Amazon, your books on Amazon, correct?
It's actually available on all platforms. It's about to go on Google Play here in a couple of days. But yes, ma'am, it's widely available.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
So if I may, how do you, because I'm not a writer, clearly. So I'm always just fascinated at, I mean, like I read Dr. JACALYN's books, a few of hers, and then just going over your writings. How do you create these characters? I mean, what is the aha moment of this is how it's going to go?
Well, it's kind of funny. For both of the first two books, and then even I've got a collection of short stories as well. I have a path or a technique that in the writing world they call us pantsers, meaning we make it up by the seat of our pants. And it's actually one of the things I love because scientific writing is so argument based. You're constantly building an argument. There's layers to it, and it's heavily referenced. So whereas fiction is just sitting down and making stuff up. And I've been fortunate to have led not being too braggadocious, but I think I've led an interesting life. I've met a lot of really people who are characters in real life, and I always take little nuggets of that away from all my interactions. And so when I sit down for each of the books and all of my short stories, and even the book I'm working on right now, book 3, I have a beginning and an ending in mind, and then a couple of milestones that I want to hit along the way. But I really do just sit down and start making stuff up, and it always seems to work out. I haven't had a case of writer's block yet. In none of these books has the path from point A to point B been what I thought it would be. And one of the most interesting examples of this, Stephen King is a pantser as well. And the analogy I always love to point to is I read something of his where y'all have seen the movie or read the book Misery, Kathy Bates and James Caan. So when Stephen King sat down to write Misery, he thought it was, number one, going to be a short story, and that number two, the Paul Sheldon character, the James Caan character in the movie, was going to die at the end. He is where he thought it was going to go, and then he already had the ending scene written in his head where the point of view would fade in on the Kathy Bates character typing on a typewriter, trying to mimic his prose, the dead author's prose, and then it would pan over to a lamp where it was going to have a tattoo on it. That became clear she actually made the lampshade out of the dead author's skin. That's how he thought the book was going to end. And then as he was writing it, he's figured out, number one, it's going to be a much longer book. And then number two, as you get to know your characters, he said, this Paul Sheldon guy is more resourceful than I originally gave him credit for. And he just trusted it. He just kept writing it without kind of seeing where it would end up at. And, the rest is history. And so I've been very fortunate that, I take a similar approach of kind of having an idea where I want it to go. But if the characters, seem like it would make sense for once you're 100, 150, 200 pages in, that it wants to go somewhere else, I'm willing to follow that. So the first time I deal with a major case of writer's block, maybe I'll give you a different answer, but for right now, it's always seemed to work out.
And with your busy schedule, how do you plan? What's your time management for writing?
Yeah. So I can't write at night because, number one, I'm tired from the day. Plus, that's my awake time with my wife. So, my wife has just retired from clinical medicine November 1st. So what I do on days when I'm going to write, I usually get up at 3:30 or 3:45 in the morning, set the alarm, and my body's gotten trained to it now. And I go in there and I write till about 5 on the days I write fiction, I should say. And I write till about 5:30 in the morning when I start getting cleaned up to go to work. So, it's the old joke about you can't find time, you have to make time. But it's just I come home so exhausted from the day. I'm doing well to just kind of suck it up and have 2-3 hours of awake time with her. We cook dinner together, eat dinner, and then a little relaxation before about 9 o'clock. I'm yawning and nodding off like this in front of the poor lady. So that has been working so far. I was very sensitive to the fact and said, hey, look, are you okay with this? And she said, as long as I keep waking up in the morning, she's fine with it. She does want her part of the day, that once I come home to kind of be our time. And then on weekends, she's very understanding about the fact that I do the majority of my work during on Saturdays and Sundays when I have the day off, or if I'm on call when I'm done with the hospital. And I've gotten a lot with that schedule. I've been able to go ahead and I want to try and put out, while I'm still working full time, about 1 book a year. And whenever clinical retirement from medicine comes down the pike, I think I cut that down to about 8 months. But that's the schedule. So it's not for everybody. When that alarm goes off at 3:30, it's very easy to go ahead and just slap the snooze button, and roll over and go back to bed. But that's what has seemed to be working for me so far.
Thanks for
Well,
sharing that. That's true dedication. If I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
Kathy, go ahead.
and well, I mean, clearly you're an excellent writer, but has just the topic at hand every day, that the burn victims. I, I mean, at the end of the day, you're not Teflon. You can't just. I'm sure you think about these people and everything that they're going through, and I'm sure it weighs very heavy on you. So, did you discover writing as this is kind of an escape? This is a way to kind of help take care of yourself.
There's actually, yeah, I don't know if y'all know the mystery author Jess Lowry, but I saw her give a TED talk not too long ago, and she and I wound up touching base afterwards and talking about this. She said there's actually a body of literature talking about how fiction writing helps people to process, heavy emotions, whether trauma or other kinds of things like that. For me, I'm really, really good at compartmentalizing my job. I try really hard not to take it home with me. But insofar as there are things that always bubble up through the muck, and that wind up registering in your brain. Uh, but what the fiction writing has done for me is just serve as a source of, because I find it so relaxing. For me, it's no different than fishing or yoga, whatever thing that other people have. Rather than using it to kind of process what I see in the hospital, frankly, it's a source of escapism from the hospital, because I don't bill my books as medical thrillers or medical mysteries. There's medicine in them, but the story could just as well be set on any other industry. I just happen to know this so well. I'll tell you what the job has really, really done for me, and it kind of Dr. JACALYN touches on what you said at the very top of the show when you were doing the introductions. I have got a very strong sense of what's really a problem and what's not really a problem. To me, a problem is, 60% burn, your hands are involved, and you're on a ventilator in the ICU, and we're talking about starting dialysis. That's a problem. A problem is not, they were supposed to deliver red curtains and they delivered green curtains. That to me, it gives you really, really good perspective on what's a problem and what's not. So in a way, I tend to be, my wife might argue that I'm overly laid back about some things, that there are some things that should bother me that don't. But as a result, it really just is about that when I hear a lot of, people carp about things, that I just sit there and, you're polite, you smile and, chew with your mouth closed and laugh at their jokes. But inside I'm thinking, man, that's just really not worth getting as spun up as I'm watching this person get spun up over the subject at hand. So that's really the biggest effect that the job has had on me now at age 54 is just a really, really good perspective about what's a problem and what's not.
Thank you. Would you say that based on the amount of pressure that you have every day, that staying in this same field is only for a limited amount of time, or is it something that you feel you can do for the rest of your career in medicine?
Well, I've been doing it 20, let's see, I finished in 2003. So next year will be 20 years. I mean, I've already kind of passed the longevity test, but the stress is, that is one of the things that burns a lot of people out, and particularly the folks who don't cope with it as well. It's a high stakes profession where, especially if somebody messes up, usually you get to go out to the waiting room and talk to the family about the consequences of the decision. So yeah, it's definitely a high stress field. For me, it's just more just the all around fatigue. I'm 54 years old, and cutting back on my trauma call helped. Trauma call especially, it's just physically, it's just a beat down as well as mentally. But now that I do burns only, it's more amenable to having a longer career. I tell my residents all the time, if you look around, you see a lot of old burn surgeons, but you don't see a lot of old trauma surgeons, and there's a reason for that. But for me, it's just really the factor, the fatigue is that. And then now that the books are having some success, it would make for I'm never going to make doctor money as a writer, I don't think, but the amount of enjoyment that it brings me is something that I'm really looking forward to one day, being able to, when I actually set my alarm when I start writing, because sometimes I get so into it, I forget, 5:30 will come and go and I can't afford to be late to work. So, that when that alarm goes off at 5:30 saying you got to stop and start, jump in the shower, it's like, oh man, but I'm at a good part. And, not having to stop when I'm on a roll is something I'm really looking forward to. So I think I've already passed the test of time by doing this almost 20 years. And both my wife and I are physicians, or she was before she retired in November. And then, we don't have any kids. So from a retirement standpoint, I'm just about there. But our money guy has told us that, there's a date circled on the calendar that he said, after that, you don't got to do this anymore if you don't want to. Well, I always thought I would be one of those guys who they carried me out of the hospital on my shield in my 70s, But now with the enjoyment that I'm getting from the writing, and not only the enjoyment, but the success is something that has started to make me question, maybe there is life after this. We'll see.
Well, you genuinely really come across as being a very happy person. I just get that feeling from you, which is so nice to see. It really is, especially in the profession that you're in. And as I said, before, I really appreciate what you're doing. And thank you so much for your service and for helping other people and all throughout the pandemic and still going at it after 20 years. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh God, don't even get me started on the pandemic too. That was, I'm a lot of things that I will not miss about the pandemic, just like everyone else. But yeah, the hospital was. I actually had just moved to New Orleans at the start of COVID. I was in Dallas for years and years, and like I mentioned, this is a new burn unit, and I had worked at Parkland Hospital. It's a very famous, generations old burn unit, one of the original burn units in the country. In fact, Parkland Hospital at Dallas. And the man who created the burn unit here in 2018, Jeff Carter, was a friend of mine. And he recruited me down to come and work with him. And I was here. It was my 4th day at work when we got an email saying that, because during the run up to this, COVID was a thing, and we already knew it was going to be bad. Well, it was on my 4th day here that we got an email from administration that the first COVID patient had shown up in the emergency room. And that was in early March of 2020. And over my first 8 weeks here, it just kept getting worse and worse. And, in the burn unit, we've got such problems with infection being a concern with our patients. What we wound up doing was we were standing up new ICUs just to take care of COVID patients. And we were taking all the other business never stopped. So we started taking cardiac patients to the burn unit and cancer patients to the burn unit and all these things just to make beds. And then all those units filled up. And, we only had X number of generators here in the hospital. And so when we ran out of ICU rooms, we started shutting down operating rooms to surgery and using those ventilators in the operating rooms as kind of functional ICU beds. And we had 18 of those. And then it just kept, every day we were talking about, what's the net number? Because we had over the first 2 months, there was always, we get 5 in for the day and overnight, but nobody was going home. People were dying, but nobody was getting discharged yet. And so we were down to our last 3 ventilators in the back of the recovery room. And all of us here, all the faculty, we took to calling that the Alamo, because that's where we were going to make our last stand. And it's just testimony to, I don't know if it was clean living paying off or what, but we were down to our last 3 ventilators when all of a sudden we started having days of net even, meaning as many people came in as left or died. And then slowly it started to trickle down. So we never got overwhelmed, but boy, I guarantee you, we were hanging on by our fingernails for a while there. In fact, the director of trauma sent out a really inspirational email through that time. It was Winston Churchill's speech during the Battle of Britain. And I got to tell you, it was really, really helpful. There was a feeling of esprit de corps during that time when, that was tough. So especially being, I'm at the stage at a new hospital where I'm still trying to figure out how the bathroom, where the bathrooms are and how the phones work. and we got COVID patients, stacked up to the rafters. So yeah, I hope I never go through that again.
I'm getting chills just listening to you describe that scenario, and that's something that you saw day after day after day. So I'd also like to know if you could share with our audience, there are people who are struggling with mental health issues and people who have changed their lives, whether it was because they wanted to or not, but they're still lost and they're overwhelmed. And based on what you've seen for all these years and what you deal with, what can you share with them about something that they can do so that they feel less overwhelmed and they know they're not alone?
Start by taking a deep breath, and trying to make a tally of the things that are working for you in your life and the obstacles or the challenges that are in front of you, and then look for support. That can be friends, neighbors, family, whatever. If you're religious at church, but everybody's got to have support. It's true. Nobody's an island. And if you don't have that, then getting creative about a way to try to find it. But it all just starts with, number one, turn the TV off. I've gotten to be so anti the talking head world, but it's really bad for you. CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all those. Anytime you've got people shouting at each other on television, or you're reading headlines where they're intentionally, it's clickbait kind of things. They want to tell you about the disaster of the day. Just turn the TV off. Try and tune out and concentrate on the things that are around you. And everybody has obstacles, but looking for sources of support to get through them. But recognizing when a lot of the turmoil that you're feeling is external in a way that really doesn't affect you. It's the state of the world. In other words, it can feel overwhelming sometimes. And go out to the woods, take a walk in the woods, go fishing, doing something to get away from the MSNBC, Fox, CNN, shouting heads, because all that'll do is just make you crazy.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great direction. That's why here we only have positive subjects. It's all
exactly.
Positive, inspirational, and hope.
I should have mentioned that because, one of the things that it was great listening to y'all on the way in. It is all positivity. And that's the thing I love about it, that, the broadcasts I went back and watched, and, that those what the world needs is more positivity around them. The conflict for conflict's sake, which it seems like is so much media today, if you let it, it'll give you an ulcer.
So true. Kathy, would you like to comment?
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And but as you were talking, I couldn't help but think about the recent shooting in Uvalde, and the person that was the shooter. I can't imagine his state of mind. I mean, I have listened to the news in terms of just some of the bullet points that they've made about him, and that he was bullied in school, and that I think his mother was a drug addict, and I don't believe that his father was around. And so I just don't think that he had a very good support system just to prop him up at all, from what I can tell. And it's such a tragedy. It's just when I can't imagine. I mean, I sit there and I think about the families and what they're going through, and how they're still processing this information as to how could this happen. But by the same token, I really wonder about this young man, and what was the deciding moment? What switch flipped that said this is the thing to do? And I mean, sometimes people are just, you can't catch people. You don't, it's kind of like suicide. It's like if they want to commit suicide, they're going to find a way. I mean, you can go and take the trash out, even though you've been with them all day, but it's that 5 second, they can take care of it if they want. And I can't help but wonder, and just feel and grieve.
Even closer to home, Dr. JACALYN and I were talking about right before we went on air. She's been here about 8 hours now. We had a patient last night with mental health issues who lit themselves on fire, and now the vast majority of their bodies burned. Their survival's in doubt. And but again, it was a mental health issue. A long track record of these kinds of things. This obviously being the most serious one. But I guess what you have to do, if in an instance like this, of course, it's tragic, and you're talking to a family who's crying and all these things, but you really need to be able to protect yourself. If you're too emotionally connected, too emotionally invested, you wind up taking that, internalizing that, and then you're a prime setup as a physician. I'm talking about now for burning out the way that we were talking about before. So you need to be empathetic, but you also need to be able to protect yourself, and that's the balance that we all have to strike as people who take care of patients who are in life-threatening conditions every day. And so if you're too far to either extreme, either just emotionally shut down, it comes across in the number one, I don't think you do as good of a job, and number two, the families tend not to like it. Like, this guy doesn't care, he's acting like it's just another day at work. But by the same token, if you just are too overly empathetic, and to the point that you wind up wearing it like a backpack, those start adding up, and then all of a sudden one day your back breaks, and you're like I was in 2013, looking at going to do something else. So you really need to be able to walk that balance of taking good care of your patients and their families, but taking care of yourself too. And with along that line, whenever there's something, and every day it seems like is another disaster in the making, whether it's nationally, internationally, or whatever. Just being able to give yourself permission sometimes to say, you know what, I'm not going to emotionally connect with that right now. I don't have that in me. That's okay. And we live in a time now where people will kind of look at you askance if you say that, but it really is a self-defense mechanism to be able to put a little distance and recognize it for the fact that, what I said before, take a deep breath and look at what's around you and the good things that you have going for you in your life. That's something that I think is positive in the way that we talked about before. And, it's one of the big things that helped me rebound from that instance that I had back in 2013. And frankly, in the first book, The Cuts That Cure, the one I mentioned about the burned out surgeon, he makes, as we say in medicine, some maladaptive choices for how to go coping with that. So I always try and point to him as a lesson in what not to do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I just want to add that as a certified life coach, when I first started out and people would share, my clients would share their stories, I would be crying and I'd get myself all involved. And I realized, wow, you're a lousy coach, because you're there as a support, and instead you're falling apart. So I think that point you just made is really important for people to, especially if you are someone who watches television all the time, that you have to be able to have the divide because it's going to affect your health in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. And as somebody, that's a comment I make to the team all the time, but as somebody who routinely, as a part of my job, a couple times a month, I have to pick up the phone at 2 a.m. and make that phone call that we all dread getting. Phone rings. Hello, can I help you? Yeah, this is Dr. Phelan calling from University Medical Center in the emergency room. And if you allow yourself to get completely, because the reaction is always the same, and so you have to be able to, like I said, walk a balance. Either extreme is not appropriate, but trying to find that kind of balance where you're there emotionally for the family, but also not taking it home with you. That's, frankly, it took me 12 years to learn it. It's a skill that some people don't eventually learn how to do, or feel guilty. They're like, oh, I'm not being as as empathetic as I could be. Well, yeah, that's true, but it's empathetic enough, not 100% empathetic, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense, because you still have a major role to play, and you still have to share information. If you just start sobbing, then they can't get the information that they need, and then it's not really helping anyone. So, Doctor, I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. I want to get back to your books and how people can follow you and engage with you and find out what are you doing next in terms of writing.
So I'm 20,000 words into my third book right now. It's a little bit of a departure insofar as it actually takes place in Fairbanks, Alaska. I fell in love with Alaska back in 2019 and just went again. I spent 6 weeks up there at that time, and I just went and spent 2 weeks in Fairbanks in the depths of winter, early February in Fairbanks, Alaska. And just like I said, I've fallen in love with it. My wife, not so much. That's been a little more of a challenge. We have a trade. She says I'm free to go visit there as much as I want, as long as I don't expect her to go with me. but the third book is set in Fairbanks, Alaska, whereas the first two have both been on the Texas-Mexico border. And I'm, like I said, about 20,000 words into it right now. I'm hoping to have the first draft done by Labor Day. Still don't have a working title for it yet, but the first two books are out and available, and you can follow me on Facebook, Arthur Herbert Writer. And then I'm also, like I said, the books are widely available. You can just Google them. And then where I'm really trying to cultivate is my following on BookBub. I don't know if y'all are aware of BookBub, but if you're a reader, it's a great site. Yeah, a lot of specials. It's all ebook based. So I'm trying to grow my BookBub following as well. So those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Sign up for any of those routes will let you sign up for my mailing list. And about once a month, I go sending out just a story, updates on the book, all kinds of things, and as well as lots of free giveaways. So feel free to go ahead and subscribe to my newsletter, and you'll get in the passenger seat with me as I go on this ride.
I love that. I definitely will. Tell us again, what is the name of that site? BookBub, B-U-B?
BookBub, one word, BookBub. And what it allows you to do is you put in your preferred genres, and every day there's millions and millions of subscribers, and you can get great deals on ebooks. What it doesn't allow you to do is you can't go looking for a particular title. Like if there's a bestseller that's out, you're not going to be able to find it on there. But what you are able to do is I'm in the mood for a good whodunit, and you can go to that column, seriously, or horror, romance, whatever your preferred genre is, and there'll just be a ton of great books by New York Times bestsellers, and usually for 99 cents. So I'm trying to cultivate that following as well, because everybody who goes on there, the problem with advertising on Facebook is you're in between cat videos and people's updates about going sweater shopping. But with BookBub, everybody who's on there is on there to look for their next favorite author. And so that's why I'm trying to, it's free to sign up. It's great. If you do go on there, you'll find my author page, and please, all you got to do is click follow, and you'll get updates. Whenever I have a new book come out, they don't inundate you. It's just something, God, I wish I would have known about even before I started writing. If I would have known about this, I'd just be reading BookBub books for the last 10 years.
That's why you didn't know about it.
That's probably right.
You're supposed to write. You're following your path.
There you go.
Any chance that you want any of your books to be made into a movie?
It's funny you say that. It's really, really hard to get that done. Really hard to get that done. But so far, both of the first two, I think, have potential for that. Netflix, actually, the new Holy Grail is getting a Netflix special or an Amazon special. But you got to be a lot further along this pathway than I am. My next kind of major goal is to make it on as a USA Today bestseller. That's kind of the what I've set my sights on right now, and that I've got a path, I've got a plan. But yeah, the movies are for the folks who've been out and about for a while, the Harlan Cobens and the Stephen Kings of the world. So that's I'll probably be wheeling around in my wheelchair at age 75 watching the movie get made on the movie set.
Doctor, while I have you on Spotlight, so for those people who are interested in getting a movie made, does Netflix or Amazon, do they contact the person or do you contact them?
So your agent goes reaching out, but the problem is there's just everybody with a good book wants to get it made into a movie, and there's only so much streaming time. So to get them to write the 8-figure checks that it gets to get that done, yeah, that's you got to kind of catch lightning in a bottle. You don't not only have to be good, you got to be lucky too, have a good agent and all that. So I'm not saying it won't happen, but I got to be a lot further down this pathway than I am right now.
Well, we wish that to happen for you. That's for sure.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Like that's one thing I've learned.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like I told you, you would have told me, several years ago that we'd be having this conversation. What are you talking about? So yeah, it's funny how things turn out.
Yes, it is.
It definitely is. Well, thank you again for being here, and you're welcome to come back on any of our shows. We have about 26 shows a week, and I'd love to chat with you maybe on our business show about the business of medicine. I think that would be interesting.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have something coming up in a couple of weeks, in about a month. I can't really talk about it right now, but I guarantee you when I finish that, I suspect y'all will want to talk to me just about that. So give me a shout back in mid-July, because I'll be able to talk about it then, but it's really, really cool.
Awesome.
Exciting.
How's that for a teaser?
Awesome. Yes,
awesome.
Leaving us wanting more. I love it.
It's that writer in you, I tell you.
There you go. That's one. Always leave them wanting more. But yeah, can't talk about it right now, but I'll be able to talk about it June 27th. So we'll talk.
I'll make a note of it right after this show.
You'll definitely be in touch. I'm going to spotlight you one more time. If you can just share how people can contact you and follow you again, that would be great.
Sure. So go to my website, arthurherbertwriter.com, and there's a box there you can check to go ahead and subscribe to my mailing list. That's probably the easiest way to keep track of everything that I'm doing. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and then bookbub.com. If you want to follow me there, you'll get updates as well on all my projects and everything else that I've got going on once they're released. So thank y'all so very much for having me. I really, really enjoyed this today.
Oh, thank you so much.
You so much. Yeah, it was a great show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll look forward to reconnecting with you in the end of July. Woo!
Sounds good. All right.
Definitely.
Thank you
Thanks
again, ladies.
again.
Really
Bye-bye.
appreciate it.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so
Wow.
much, Kathy, for bringing him to the platform. Wow, he's incredible. I mean, he's this successful surgeon and a successful writer. How do you get that together? I've
Yeah.
interviewed people who were surgeons and now they're full-time writers, but for someone who's doing both at the same time, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, and this is one of those situations, and it's not. Well, this is who I knew that it was a connection. So I
Mhm.
was graced with that good fortune to be introduced to him. So I'm thrilled, and he is an amazing person. I don't know how he does it. I really don't. Knowing myself, I would get bogged down in all of the emotion, and so that's not the job for me. Clearly.
Well, what he mentioned was that it took him 12 years. It's a skill set that
Sure.
obviously it is not something that everyone has, which is why he's doing what he's doing. So it takes a
Right.
certain person. But
Right.
Kathy, we have to sign off because we have another show coming up, which is your
Mhm.
show where you're going to be presenting as a talking head. So please let people know right now, if you would, what you're going to be talking about today and how people can get in touch with you.
Well, so 'tis the season. It's Memorial Day weekend, and everybody's going to be heading off to the pool, right? Well, this is also the season where people are building their pools. And so there are many, many selections that people don't realize need to be made in order for this space to turn out just like you wanted it. So stay tuned, and I'm going to walk you through all the different selections. And so there you have it.
All right. And how can people get in touch with you, Kathy?
Well, feel free to call me. I answer my phone. I'm one of the rare ones that answers, that picks up when it rings. So call me at 703-895-3798, or you can email me. I'm at kathyfulton1965@gmail.com.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a pleasure having you here. And
Thank
I know you have to go get ready for the next show. So I will see you shortly.
See you there. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you who watch our shows, and for the people listening on our new radio channels. And I announced yesterday, I woke up to an email from United States Patent and Trademark Office that USA Global TV is officially registered. So I am very excited. And I also just wanted to close out the show and ask if you would consider going over to Amazon. And in addition to purchasing the Good Doctor's books, if you could purchase my books as well. This Adversity to Awesome just came out. This is a compilation of 12 chapters, and each chapter is a different story from a different writer. My chapter is the first chapter, something that happened to me decades ago that I kept a secret and lived in shame, and just put it out there to help other people come forward and share their story. And this book, Behind the Green Screen, which you can't see too well because of the green screen, is my story of how and why I left the corporate world and how I actually started this platform during a pandemic with absolutely no experience. And now I went from having a radio show to 26 live broadcasts. I produce and direct and host and do all the work behind the scenes, and you can learn how to do it as well. So thank you again for being here. We're going to sign off. We'll be back in just about 12 minutes. I'm going to play a couple of sponsorships, and then we'll see you shortly. Thanks again.
Take a moment.
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 So I've had the privilege of photographing some incredible people over the years, and during each shoot I've asked the subject to close their eyes and take themselves to a peaceful place just for a few seconds. I've found that this really helps to refresh the energy between the camera and the subject. They had an energy that was quite special and quite different from the rest of the shoot. The collection grew, and now it feels the right time to use it for something good. I think it'd be amazing if we could help to raise awareness and involve people in the discussion about mental health. So what we're asking to do is for everyone to upload their own self-portraits. All of these portraits will become part of a massive artwork. I'm really excited to see this project go from hundreds of pictures to thousands of pictures. Essentially, a never-evolving artwork that says we're all in this together.
Close your eyes and take a moment.